Joining us there is Congresswoman Jill Tokuda, Democrat of Hawaii. She serves on the Armed Services Committee. Congresswoman, let's begin with those boat strikes in the Caribbean. What is your position on the September 2nd boat strikes, the first and the second one?
I think that the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth, owes the American people a lot of answers that he has not been given. Let's be clear, in the past when we've gone after potential drug smuggling boats, we have not literally blown them out of the water, not once, but twice. These are unprecedented actions that very well, when we see all the information and facts laid out before us, could result in war crime prosecutions here. And we're not talking about saddling the blame and scapegoating an admiral. We're talking going all the way to the top. Who gave those kill orders? And I think that's a question that Pete Hegseth has been absolutely avoiding.
The New York Times writes this morning that in defending the campaign of summary killings at sea as lawful, the administration has relied on Mr. Trump's disputed determination that the United States is in a formal armed conflict with drug cartels and that people suspected of smuggling drugs for them are combatants. Congresswoman, are these cartels armed, and are they killing Americans?
First of all, War Powers Authority rests with Congress, and you've got a lot of warlike language that the president and his administration is using to try to defend these, quite frankly, unlawful actions. And when we talk about survivors clinging to the side of the boat, these are not armed combatants. In fact, some would argue even before the strike itself, were they armed combatants pointing guns to the heads of Americans right now, posing an imminent threat to life and to democracy, to the country. I think that this administration, this president still has a very big case to make in terms of how he can justify this level and use of force, this massive deployment of our military to the region right now. And those answers have not been gotten from this administration. So to justify these actions, I think the Americans have right to question whether or not this was a justifiable use of force, and this was not, in fact, a violation of our own rules of law as well as international law.
Are these drug cartels armed?
We have not seen any pictures or evidence, quite frankly, to this day that shows that these are armed combatants that are posing imminent and immediate threat to Americans. And again, as you recall, with this particular boat strike, from what I understand as it's been reported, not just 2 strikes to kill all survivors, but 4 strikes in total to absolutely sink the boat so that no evidence, nothing could actually be retrieved to actually be able to even lay claim that that was in fact the case, that these were armed combatants posing threats to American citizens.
What about the Americans who have lost their lives, the families of those who have lost loved ones to drugs like fentanyl? Is that not a threat to the United States?
Drugs are absolutely 100% a threat to the United States. And you're talking about an administration that's actually cut funding to support programs that help families and individuals dealing with drug addiction. So it's quite the hypocrisy now to go out and blow up these boats. You know, in the past when we had these incursions, we actually seized the boats. We arrested and detained the individuals so we could actually get to the root of the crime and stop the penetration of all drugs into our country. We don't even know what kind of drugs were actually on those boats. You can't when you sink it to the point of having it drop to the bottom of the ocean. And so the question really lies, what is this president truly trying to do? If stopping drugs is the case, and there's questions as to if these routes even are bound for the United States, if they even carry fentanyl. As we know, that typically comes over land in the southern border area. You're in the ocean now. Usually this particular route heads to Europe, containing cocaine and other illicit drugs, which of course are not good. But again, the past practice has been to seize, to detain, to make sure that we absolutely understand what's going on so we can better prevent the flow of drugs into this country, not blow them out of the water with our military forces.
Congresswoman, the Inspector General report came out about the use of the Signal messaging app, and they found that the Defense Secretary put U.S. troops at risk and that it broke protocol. However, the Pentagon Press Secretary, Sean Purnell, put this statement out. The Inspector General review is a total exoneration of Secretary Hegseth and proves what we knew all along. No classified information was shared. The matter is resolved and the case is closed. The administration pointing to the part of the report that said that the Defense Secretary has the authority to declassify information.
I think just because you can declassify information doesn't mean that you should. And I think what we have here is a secretary who from day one we have questioned whether he has the competency, the character, and the ability to make good decisions. And I think anyone, any American out there looking at the Signalgate situation can tell you that he did not use proper channels to communicate sensitive information. He put American service members' lives at risk. Just because he can declassify information doesn't mean that every bit of piece of paper information that comes into his hands should at that moment then become declassified. People should be asked the question, yes, he can declassify. Should he have declassified that particular information? Did he in fact declassify that information at the point that he then started to signal with his buddies and friends on, about the war plans that he had, in the area? So I think there's a lot that you can take from the report. We should be asking tough questions to Pete Hegseth in a public setting, under oath. And again, I think this really comes down to a question of competency, character, as well as his ability to make good decisions. Being the secretary is about making choices. Should you use signal? Should you walk away when that second strike goes out on the boat in the middle of the ocean? Should you give a kill order? I think these are legitimate questions that we need to be asking the Secretary of Defense.
You're a member of the Armed Services Committee. Will your panel call him to testify?
I know that there's been bipartisan efforts to call Pete Hegseth forward to get information. It needs to be in a public setting. I appreciate that you can have classified briefings, but the bottom line is the American people deserve to know what happens. They deserve to see him answer or not answer their questions. So I do hope that the Armed Services Committees will bring forward the Secretary in short order to be able to be held accountable to the decisions that he has made throughout his tenure so far.
There will be a classified briefing behind closed doors today. Will you be there, and who will you hear from?
I don't actually believe that I have been invited to that classified briefing in some of these particular settings. It's only for the leadership of the committee. I will double check. These briefings are literally being called with an hour's notice. But if there is a briefing that I'm invited to, I will be there. But again, think about it. When we walk out of those briefings, we're not able to share the information or the answers that we hear during those sessions. Americans deserve a public setting where under oath, people can be held accountable.
Do you think that Pete Hegseth, the Defense Secretary, should resign?
I absolutely think that he should take a look at his body of work, his ability to make good decisions, ability to keep this country safe. And I think if he were to look back honestly and openly about it, that he would decide it's in the best interest of this country and our Department of Defense for him to resign.
Congresswoman Jill Tokuda, Democrat of Hawaii, member of the Armed Services Committee. Thank you for joining us from Capitol Hill this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.